on, one of the attendees at yesterday's event. She is a candidate for House District 1, State House District 1 in Colorado, and was attacked and threatened at yesterday's pro-police rally, Colorado Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, celebratory event, the 6th annual one. We will show some footage for those just joining us in a moment, but Samantha Koch joins us now here on the program. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on.
So you're a little distant there. Sounds like the mic's a little quiet from you. A little bit of static going on there. But I think we'll be able to hear if you could speak up loud as possible. Okay. That'll be great. But welcome to the show. It's good to have you. So I'm going to have Nathan Matoush, my producer, show a little bit of footage of what happened yesterday as we talk, so they can see some of the tension if they're just joining us. But what happened? Well, first of all, why were you there, and what did you make of what happened yesterday? And then we'll get to your story.
Well, we were invited, as a candidate running in Denver, we were invited to come and support our police. We were meant to have a few minutes to speak to the crowd and to really show our appreciation for our law enforcement. So I got there a little bit after some of the initial chaos, and I was very confused as to what was happening.
When you say confused, what do you mean?
Well, we were told to go to this stage area, and I had never been to this particular park, so I didn't know what the stage area was. The reason I didn't know what it was is because the stage area was literally covered shoulder to shoulder with Antifa protesters.
Oh, when you got there, the protesters had already shown up in full force. So the so-called protesters.
Right. That's apparently what we're supposed to call them.
So from a distance then, since you came from the outside, I had not realized that. What was that experience like? What was to walk us through sort of your sense?
Yeah, when I got there, everything already seemed extremely tense, and it was very chaotic already. There were, at that point, the people that were there to support the police were on the sidelines, kind of up on the steps and the benches, and I didn't understand why, but all of the protesters were in the middle, kind of congregating and coming together. The police were coming down from the stairs to kind of separate the people that were there for the rally, separate us from the protesters, and trying to keep things hopefully from getting out of hand. So that was kind of the environment I walked into.
Samantha, when you were there and you ended up managing to make your way down, I assume, to the main area, and then what happened? What was going on? Because as I understand it, you were directly threatened.
Yes. Well, I was kind of towards the top of the stairs. I saw a couple people that I knew, so I made my way down to them. And then I kind of got into it with a couple of protesters, trying to engage them in their cause versus our cause, which, I understand is not generally going to have a lot of point to it. But at that point, I turned around and realized that I was in the midst of all the protesters. So I don't know if all the rally goers had, just decided to leave, or if they, were advised to leave by the officers, but I was literally in the thick of the protest. So I was trying to get out of there. So as I, made my way back up the stairs and I was going kind of around the wall, this group was following me and screaming at me. And this one lady, decided that she wanted to really engage with me. She kept slapping my phone and trying to hit it out of my hand. She was getting in my face and yelling obscenities at me. We were kind of in this thick of trees, and she kept grabbing the branches and trying to slap it into my face. And this one guy then stepped in, and he was a big guy. And he yelled at me to stop touching her. And I said, I'm not touching her. Like, I'm not the one coming at her. And he got in my face and said, I will literally slit your throat. Like, I want to slit your throat right now. I will slit your throat. He said it about 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And at that point, 2 of our good guys stepped in between myself and these other people to kind of keep things from escalating, which I appreciated. But even from there, this lady continued to come at me and yell at me, and she was really trying to engage, what I felt was a physical encounter, confrontation. I was not about to get that started.
I'm not surprised based on the way in which they made their entrance. We've showed this before, and I'll briefly show it again in cut one. This is how things started from the stage vantage point when they first came out and interrupted as we were doing the Pledge of Allegiance before you arrived, or maybe at about that time, Samantha.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is all they can do. They cannot let you speak.
So you get a sense there for how things were in that early part. Immediately, they came in making noise and intervening in very, shall we say, vigorous ways, to put it mildly, Samantha. And when we look at what happened there, it doesn't seem surprising to me at all that there was so much vitriol being leveled right away at people who were there just gathering together peacefully. We were the peaceful ones exercising our First Amendment rights.
Right, absolutely, which is something I am fully in support of. I am fully in support of our First Amendment right to free speech and to peaceably assemble. This was not a peaceful assembly, at least on the protesters' part. You know, I did get there late, but I did see some of the footage of the things that happened before I got there. And they had no intent to keep things peaceful. They came with the intent to incite violence and to start these physical altercations. I understand that, one of the other guests that I believe you talked to before or after was beaten. Michelle Malkin had a video of somebody with a collapsible baton. These were not people that were there to peaceably assemble, and this is the kind of thing that we need to be aware of, and to make a distinction between peaceful protests, which we allow, and violent protests, which is what they came to incite.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, and an important point, Samantha Koch, our guest here on Jimmy at the Crossroads, a candidate for State House here in Colorado and in the city of Denver. Now, it appears that the police had their hands very much tied in terms of being able to try and address this situation. What do you make of that, and also how brazen these thugs were? And when they decided to just interrupt this event, to completely disrupt it, and to turn violent both in words, through threats like you experienced, and also through actual actions.
Right. I did hear that the police officers were advised to stand down and to not engage. I have mixed feelings about that, but it does say a lot about the leadership that we have in Denver, and who they're protecting. They are standing up more for these violent thugs and these people that are leading to so much unrest and violence against, peaceful citizens. And this is the kind of thing, they appear to be standing up more for people that want to cause this kind of anarchy versus the people that want to stand up for, especially for those that keep our communities safe. So it says a lot about the kind of current leadership that we have now and how desperately we need to change it.
And in terms of support for the police, I mean, that's why we were gathered together. And this is the 6th annual event that took place in Civic Center Park for the police, to show support for law enforcement, not to say that we don't need reforms, that things don't need to change, that there isn't a situation that needs to be addressed all across the country. But I'm just struck, I keep making this point, but I'm just struck by how brazen they were, how confident they were to actually do something like this and allow it to get so violent so quickly. Not just allow it, but to perpetrate this kind of violence so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think we've seen, some of the same disrespect for our, peaceful citizens of Colorado when our governor is calling names, calling good people names if they don't listen to him. So it kind of, leads to this environment where people feel empowered to show up at these events and know that, the leadership of Colorado and the police officers are not going to do anything about it because they've been instructed not to. So they've really been given a lot of power and a lot of confidence based on the tone of our elected officials right now. So, they know very well that, if anybody's going to be not punished, but if anybody's going to be spoken against, it's going to be the ones that were there to protest or to rally peacefully. versus them who we all know are not there to be peaceful.
Once again, Samantha Koch joining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Finally, why did you show up yesterday? What was it about this support for law enforcement that got you saying, you know, I want to join in, especially since I am someone running in Denver?
Well, you know, we've seen across the country this effort to abolish or to defund the police, and we saw this recent Senate bill come through. And I've spoken to several officers that are saying, you know, just because of the restrictions of this bill, that there are officers that are leaving the state, that they, you know, they're not going to put themselves in a position to put their families, you know, that lead to financial ruin, put their families in danger. So we really are at a position where we're seeing our police officers and our departments diminished. And I understand, you know, we knew that this protest was going to happen. We knew these people were going to be there. And we were told, you know, I've heard that we were advised to some level not to be there. But at what point do we say enough is enough? At what point do we, you know, we stop standing down and staying away and letting these mobs determine who we support and what we stand for? So at that point, you know, I knew that it could be a potentially dangerous situation. But I wanted to be there to remind our officers that these mobs do not speak for the majority. That the majority of good, reasonable people still love them and appreciate them. And yes, we can always work for improvement. That's something that I'm open to and I understand needs to happen in some ways. But the good people of our state need to be represented.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sense is that they've had this territory for 2+ months in the heart of Denver, to the point where the capital, you can't go to the Capitol. Certainly, if you want to have any assurance of safety. I don't have any images of it, but there's a Polisville tent city right outside the state capitol. It is vandalized and not cleaned up at all. You have statues that had been torn down, and the list goes on. And this is the one time when you actually had a demonstration that was different, and something, by the way, that was annual. This wasn't just set up, hey, this is going on, we're gonna do some sort of a response to provoke something. This was an annual event, and I agree with you that when you start giving that ground and allowing them to dictate the conversation, it makes things even worse. And we're seeing that play out. That's why they're so brazen.
Exactly. You know, they know. And, you know, the last thing, we just don't want to keep sending the message that if they say they're going to protest an event or they're going to show up and harass people, that we back off and cancel our rallies and our support and, you know, standing up for the other side. So it gets to the point where you have to say, you know what, I've got to do something. I can't just keep letting them tell me to stay in my home and be afraid.
I think that's well put. Samantha Koch joining us, again, a candidate for State House in Denver, Colorado, and an attendee who was literally threatened. And I'm so glad that you had others there around you to provide some sense of safety and to stop any potential assailants. I mean, who knows if this person that was threatening to slit your throat might have actually gotten viciously violent. So I'm very glad that you are okay, and appreciate you coming on to tell your story today, Samantha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching this clip of Jimmy at the Crossroads. Don't miss more engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe today to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel. You do not want to miss our live show. Thanks for your support.
I got Jimmy at the crossroads, making sense out of no sense. Yeah.
Awesome.